The Bills hired Joe Brady as head coach, their offensive coordinator from the last couple of seasons, quarterback coach before that. He was the OC, infamously the OC for the 2019 LSU team that won a national championship, had the #1 pick at quarterback, had 2 all-pro receivers. I'm sure that helped a little bit with that. Goes on to be the OC for the Panthers. Just spam choice routes to CMC, becomes the quarterback coach for Buffalo. And then he usurped, Ken Dorsey as the OC in the middle of the season a couple of years ago, but promoted to head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I have plenty of thoughts about this, but Matt, I'm curious about what are your thoughts? Are you surprised? What you think about it? What are the next steps for the Bills, et cetera, et cetera? What'd you think?
A lot of different thoughts here.
I got more notes on this than any of our main topics. I got more notes on this than anything else.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I think this could end up being our longest conversation on the show here, just because there's so much to pull apart here about this particular move here from Buffalo. I think when we originally talked about the idea of the Bills firing Sean McDermott with Charles after the divisional round, it was, this probably isn't the right year, quote unquote, to fire Sean McDermott, but I could justify them doing it if they want to do a full scale reset. I mean, not only are they keeping Brandon Beane, which we already joked about and had our fun with on a previous show, now they're just promoting the offensive coordinator a week after, by the way, less than a week after their owner came out and said, and I know you and I think both had fun about this on social media, the owner comes out and defends Brandon Beane by saying, oh no, the Keon Coleman pick. And look, I don't know this for a fact that Keon Coleman was Joe Brady's guy or anything like that, but it's just the optics of it are funny that part of the defense was, that was the coaching staff that picked Keon Coleman. Well, not only were you interviewing Joe Brady, now you've hired Joe Brady, the part of theoretically the coaching staff that wanted the Keon Coleman pick. And just, again, that makes it all really kind of funny, but just, I have some actually pretty positive thoughts about Brady that we can unpack as an offensive mind and a play call and all that stuff. I do just think directionally, what you're saying here is that this was all Sean McDermott's problem. And it doesn't really square that nothing that Terry Pegula has said ever since he got in front of a mic less than a week ago has really made any sense, or I think squared much with reality anyways. But it just doesn't really square that you said, hey, we fired Sean because we hit the proverbial playoff wall, and now you're just essentially promoting from within. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, even if you like Joe Brady as a head coaching candidate or as an offensive coordinator, which again, I generally do like Brady, and we can unpack that. But yeah, just that part of it, my first reaction is it's a little tough to square some of this, but then again, all of it's been tough to square for Buffalo in the last, week and a half.
It seemed like the priority, even just you look at the names that were floated out, who they interviewed and everything, it was making Josh Allen happy and someone that wouldn't threaten Brandon Beane at all. And I think there's nothing wrong with making your quarterback happy. There's nothing wrong. They're the most important player on the team. I get that. Not the only player on the team, but the most important one, especially one like Josh Allen, who is locked in, top 3 quarterback in the league, and reigning MVP until Matthew Stafford seems like he's going to win it. My issues with the Bills were roster construction and lack of offensive ideas in the passing game. And those two people that are in charge of those two things got promoted. I don't think I need to add to that, but I will. But that's the issue. Those were my 2 issues with this team: roster construction and the passing game being very limited and being they repeated calls. And there's some intelligence and some, I almost said smartness, as I'm trying to say in an elegant way here, but there is something to repeating play calls. I think sometimes there's a genius to that, where you kind of just repeat a call because the defense is expecting something completely new. It's like, stop it, run until they stop. It's classic kind of coaching adage some people don't follow. Brady kind of does that to a fault. I know the mesh thing is kind of a meme. This is something I'm still trying to figure out. Is that the quarterback wanting that, or is that him just calling it and just going like, this works for us, we'll just find new ways to run it? Who knows? But the problem is we won't find out because both of these guys are still there. Obviously, Josh Allen's going to be there, but Joe Brady now, and he has even more power. He might be a fine head coach. Who knows? Some people end up being a much better head coach than you expect, being worse head coach than you expect, being exactly what you expect. It all comes down to the staff he hires, especially on defense. He needs to hire a new offensive line coach. That's another huge thing. Both of Brady's most successful stops have been with good offensive line coaches. So I'm including the 2019 LSU team and also the Bills teams from the last few years. Aaron Cromer just retired. So he's got to basically build up the whole rest of the offensive staff. And I think, does Joe Brady have that Rolodex to kind of pick those guys? Sean Payton's basically hired all the guys because, Brady was a Saint guy. And the thing is, too, so the Keon Coleman thing, I know that's kind of turned and it's lost contain. And I've cracked jokes, you've cracked jokes, everybody has, but it's worth talking about a little bit. So if the whole thing was the owner said that was a coach pick, are we saying Sean McDermott had the lead he was the lead scout for the coaches on receivers? Because to me, that's just bad process then. So this is the thing. This was so funny about picking apart Brandon Beane and the owner and everybody's stories. So that's a coach's pick. Well, no, it's McDermott's pick. So you had McDermott call receiver pick? Well, not Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator who has a receiver background. He wasn't the lead guy for the offensive player scouting. Yeah. If you're going to blame it on the coaches, get your freaking story straight. That's the problem. When you talk, you just you let this happen. And it's like, okay, so none of this makes sense. Nothing is adding up to exactly what it is, but that's the Bills. We just got to remember what the Bills are. You're going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say Joe Brady played wide receiver at William & Mary, which is about an hour and 45 minutes away from where I live. So, I mean, he was the receivers coach at LSU and to that 2019 season, in addition to being the passing game coordinator. So this idea that's another thing, one of the biggest criticisms that the Brady offense gets. And, you mentioned some of the limitations in the passing game. Do you think that's more of that's more of like a design issue, or like you said, the sequencing and the actual play calling of it?
Both. He tries to kind of dress it up, but then there's limitations to what those window dressings are. A lot of the backfield orbit motions. And that's the thing is when you have more stuff in the backfield, you limit what you get to as far as down the field. And I think some of the sequencing stuff too is as soon as they get into the red zone, it's like, okay, here comes the running back leak play. The guy breaking through the line of scrimmage and throwing it back. It's just that even the run game, which I really liked with the Bills, a lot of the under center stuff they got to, the multi-tight end stuff that they got to the last couple of years, that felt like more that was the O-line coach in the run game and those coaches putting that together. Because why I say that, a lot of the passes didn't kind of build off of that. There's times where you see under center play action, but it wasn't like the run fake was exactly how they run fake or do the same action on a run play. The formations didn't tie together perfectly. So to me, there's a little disconnect there. That happens all the time. You don't have to dress up your play action exactly as the run game is, just get it close enough. But I did think that a lot of stuff was disconnected. It was like their gun game was their gun game, their under center game was their under center game. Their personnels were just very much so what I'm getting at to answer your question is that I didn't think the sequencing and some of the cohesion of the designs made sense to me over time. These played a lot of big games. I watched a lot of Bills, so maybe I just pick up on this a lot more. But I do think that even Bills fans and anyone that's watched them kind of sees some of these limitations. Me and Bill Barnwell joke all the time about how many times they run mesh. Which again, there's time and a place to run mesh. It's not that you don't run it. It's just that every big situation, they call it. And if you're a smart defense, it's just teed off on that. And to me, that's just a little scary because now you're kind of getting more insular. You're getting more into, well, Brady and Allen were already doing that anyways. Now who's going to tell them to stop? Who's going to come in there and go, stop running that? No one, because now Brady just is to the top now and Josh Allen is going to have his buddy there. It's and that's the thing. Again, he might be better as a head coach and everything, but even that LSU stuff, Steve Ensminger, the coach that was there as well, he was the primary play caller. Brady did third downs and red zone stuff. But the run game stuff and all the other stuff, early downs, that was the true offensive coordinator. Brady was just passing game coordinator. It's just funny how the narrative just goes. He gets the Joe Broyles Award, which is the assistant coach of the year in college football. He had the number one pick, Burrow. He had 2 All-Pros. He becomes the OC with the Panthers. I joked about the choice routes to CMC, but even Sam Darnold, when he played his best football in Carolina, he had that first month where he was scrambling a bunch and all that. Then he kind of tapered off. And then the next year he started again at the end of the season. So that would have been 2022. And people have used these stats going hey, Darnold was playing better football there. Brady was already in Buffalo. So it's not like Joe Brady can claim that either. So Sam Darnold got better without you. Of course, Joe Burrow looked good in college. He was the number one pick, and he wasn't even the primary play caller. And then now he gets to work with Josh Allen. I don't know. These things always worry me. It's who is he learning from? What where did it get tough for him? And then he had to figure out a way to design these plays. He can just hit the Josh Allen button over and over. And we're going to get to the other Josh Allen play caller in a second, who I have the same issues with. But I don't know. They said they wanted an offensive-minded head coach. That was their plan. But their final candidates were Joe Brady, Brian Daboll, and Davis Webb. I mean, come on. Like, that's not casting a wide net. And then the Anthony Wynn interview, which is just laughing in the face of the Rooney Rule. I don't know, man. It's just, it's performative. This is just what they wanted. And I don't know. I'm not saying this is going to be a nightmare. This could be a mess. It all depends on the staff he hires. He might blow us out of the water with a cool defense coordinator hiring, something like that. But I don't know. It's to me, it just feels very lazy and very like Bean and Allen got the guy they wanted. And that's because he's not going to butt heads with them. And that can work. But I don't know. The NFL sometimes button heads and, iron sharpening iron. And sometimes that friction can lead to better things. And right now they kind of feel like they're taking the easy way out with everything, which is kind of a little frustrating, I think, from an outsider's perspective. But any closing thoughts on this? Because I think I got most of mine out.
I was going to say, I think I kind of am of two minds with this, because I do agree. And this was on my radar right away when they had, like, the Davis Webb thing was being floated. And if we're being honest, I think Joe Brady was promoted from quarterback coach to offensive coordinator, in part because Ken Dorsey was like, to me, it was a lot of the same old Brian Daboll stuff, and they needed to move away from that. But I also think that was because Ken seemingly is a little bit more of a different personality than Joe Brady. Let's put it at that.
Yes.
Different personality than Joe Brady.
Yes.
And then I think that Brady was Josh's guy. They had a good relationship. That's probably why he got the OC job to begin with. And now that's probably why he's gotten the head coaching job. And I don't love that as a process. I said, I would rather have not an outright combative, but a little bit more friction based relationship between my head coach, play caller, and quarterback. That being said, my defense of Joe Brady as an offensive mind and like as more of a play designer, maybe I like him a little bit more in the passing game than you do. I just think that the passing game specifically in Buffalo these last few years has just been so limited by what the personnel is. And I think it's really debilitating. I mean, again, Josh Palmer was their big, free agent signing this offseason. He couldn't even cut it as the Chargers wide receiver 3. Like, they summarily moved on from him, and that's a team that still needs wide receiver help. And they kind of planned on him playing the most snaps at the outside receiver position. The Coleman thing was just such a whiff. And I think this is an offense based on what I imagine Joe Brady wants to be in the passing game, which that I go back to that 2020 season with the Carolina Panthers, which was a really successful offensive season for them, all things considered. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, and Mike Davis all had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage that season. And the owner blew it up because Teddy Bridgewater was their quarterback, and he played exactly like Teddy Bridgewater you'd expect Teddy Bridgewater to play. And then Brady, I think, was scapegoated next year by Matt Rule, who, definitely didn't have his hand in the offensive, in what was going on there in that 2020 season. And again, the 2020 version of those 3 wide receivers I just rattled off there, Moore, Samuel, and Robbie Anderson, are a lot better than anything Buffalo has had these last couple of years. So to me, I think that you can get a lot out of this offense, especially when you do have an X receiver that actually wins on a route by route basis, which is DJ Moore's not a perfect player, but he was a good fit in this offense because they kind of had him run 3 routes. A lot of, like, Michael Thomas ran, a small handful of routes, and he was more of a full field receiver than the slant boy moniker gave him. But this is where that offense kind of comes from. It kind of comes from that, like, Sean Payton, New Orleans Saints DNA. And I think if they get more players that can actually fit into that, I think the offense can take a step forward. In addition to the fact that I like a lot of what Brady, and maybe it was all Aaron Cromer, I don't know. It's always tough to split these things up, but I like a lot of what they've done in the run game. I like them going to jumbo personnel, when before everybody else started doing it this year, they were kind of the first ones doing it. And then, like, they zigged when everyone starts zagging, and they get Jackson Hawes involved in the mix there, but they can't really get their first round tight end because he's kind of a fake tight end. It's just, that's where you get to the personnel stuff with this Buffalo team, and it gets really knotty. Of course, the guy who's in charge of personnel was promoted, so again, that's where it gets all knotty in the process of it all. But I don't know. I generally do like Brady, and I think that it's hard to hold a lot of what the passing game has felt like against him, because again, in my opinion, it is the players. Even a lot of things that people say was like, well, Stephon Diggs started to not be as productive when Brady took over. I'm like, Diggs started to decline in that 2023 season. Like the decline began in that season, and it's just difficult. I know he's gone on to obviously be a productive and useful player for 2 other teams. He's won the damn Super Bowl here.
But he's not number one.
But he's not a number one.
He's a glorified one for the Patriots. Yeah.
And it's tough politically, and I know this because I've talked to people, involved in this. It's tough politically to like stop treating your elite number one receiver like an elite number one receiver when he is still on the same roster, So it's just, I think that was more of the push and pull than anything, more of just like a personality based stuff than Brady's scheme. Like as if he took over, it's like the first thing I got to do is take the number one receiver out of the offense. I think that he was already a player in decline at that point, especially working down the field as a separator.
And you look how they use their receivers, and that, I agree with you. This is not going to bottom out. Josh Allen's too good. And this offense is above board. That's the thing. It's not like this is it's going to be atrocity. So that's the thing is like, I don't think the Bills are just going to fall off. I just think that's more like it's the lack of, it's not inspiring. I think it maybe is the best way. It's totally. Like, you want to see the firework factory, and I get that. Speaking about Diggs, this is also like my theory of like, be wary of taking a receiver early in the draft. Is it's really hard to convince your top 10 pick to block and do the dirty work. It's why would I do that? I'm number 6 overall pick. I'm not. You didn't draft me. I'm here to catch touchdowns, and that's something I've seen over the years. And if you look at all the Bills receivers, Khalil Shakir, Palmer, why they signed him, the tight ends, all these guys, they do. Mac Hollins last year, they did all the dirty work stuff, like to block all the bubbles and flats and everything, the 100 ones of those that they ran. And that's, again, that stuff was working. This offense has had a lot of good performances. It's just that there's some moments, like there's some stuff against the blitz that was weird this year. And again, is that O-line? Was that Josh Allen? Was that the scheme? Don't know unless you're in the building, but it did crop up to me. Josh Allen took more sacks. He had a higher pressure to sack rate. I also thought just some scheme stuff where they were just, I brought this up like 100 times, but the Falcons game was the one where I thought they really got exposed for kind of their lack of offensive diversity and maybe a lack of adjustments. And that's where I had some more concerns with it. But again, the floor is pretty high because again, if you just kind of keep this going, you're going to have a top 6 offense pretty locked in. They do have to sign their offensive lineman, figure out some new spots there. That is another thing that's going to bring up with them, or, they have the free agents. They have some cap space stuff to work out. They have defensive holes too. So I think it's really how he fills out the rest of the staff is going to be like my complete answer on this. But I just do think if Bills fans are a little frustrated by this, I kind of understand because it does feel like, they got a guy to not butt heads with the quarterback and the GM, which can be good, but also can be interesting.